Rachel's hand shot across the table and grabbed the billionaire's wrist. Hard. The blue pill froze inches from Cameron Sterling's mouth. His eyes went wide. 12 of the richest people in Chicago stopped breathing. The private dining room went dead silent. She had just touched him. A waitress. Touching him. Sir. Rachel's voice shook, but she didn't let go. That pill will kill you. Cameron's face turned to stone. Cold. Dangerous. The kind of look that ended careers with a single phone call. Excuse me. What Cameron didn't know in that moment. The woman gripping his wrist was Dr. Rachel Winters, the biochemist his company had destroyed 3 years ago. The whistleblower he'd personally fired without ever seeing her face. What Rachel didn't know, she had just saved the life of the man who'd signed her death warrant. And neither of them knew that in exactly 90 minutes, if he swallowed that capsule, his heart would stop beating. Here's the question nobody was asking. Was Rachel trying to save him, or was this revenge dressed up as rescue? Before I show you the answer, let me take you back to where this really started, 6 hours earlier, when Rachel walked into her shift needing this job more than her next breath. 6 hours earlier, Rachel Winters pushed through the employee entrance of Meridian Steakhouse, already exhausted before her shift began. The restaurant smelled like money, rich coffee, aged leather, the kind of place where a single dinner cost more than her weekly rent. Mahogany panels lined the walls, absorbing the hushed conversations of Chicago's elite. Outside, October wind rattled the windows, but inside everything was warm, controlled, expensive. Rachel tied her apron and checked her reflection. 34 years old. Dark circles she couldn't hide anymore. But her hands were steady, and that's what mattered. Table 6 needs their wine list. Table 12 wants the chef's tasting menu. Table 9 has a shellfish allergy. Tell the kitchen twice. Her manager, Derek, rattled off orders without looking up. Rachel nodded, already memorizing every detail. She was good at this job. Too good, probably. She could hold 15 complex orders in her head without writing anything down. Could calculate the exact timing needed so every dish hit the table at the perfect temperature. Her mind worked like a machine, precise, efficient, never forgetting. It was the same mind that had earned her a PhD in biochemistry from Northwestern. The same mind that had cost her everything. Rachel moved through the dining room, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, invisible. That's what good servers were. Invisible until needed. She'd gotten used to it. 3 years of being invisible. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She already knew what it was. Payment reminder. The $2,400 monthly payment for her legal debt was already 5 days overdue. Total remaining, $180,000. Her bank account had exactly $347.18. Rent was due in 6 days. Another $900 she didn't have. She pushed a panic down and kept moving. Table for left a prescription bottle on the table. Rachel's eyes caught it automatically as she cleared their plates. Metformin, diabetes medication. Her brain immediately calculated the dosage, noted the pharmacy label, registered that they'd also ordered the creme brulee. Not a dangerous combination, just ironic. She couldn't help it. Her mind still worked like a researcher's, even though that life was dead and buried. You pay attention to details others miss, her old mentor used to say. That's your gift, Rachel. That gift had destroyed her career. That gift had left her $180,000 in debt. That gift kept her awake at night, cataloging drug interactions for customers who didn't know she existed. Rachel grabbed her order pad and headed to the private dining section. Just another night. Just another shift. Keep your head down. Collect your tips. Survive until tomorrow. She had no idea that in 3 hours, her gift would save a life and ruin it all over again. Cameron Sterling arrived at exactly 7:47 p.m., 13 minutes early, which was his way of being on time. Rachel felt the shift in the restaurant before she saw him. Derek's spine went rigid. The hostess smoothed her hair 3 times. 2 servers suddenly found urgent tasks in the kitchen. The air itself seemed to tighten. Then he walked in, tall, mid-50s, suit that probably cost more than Rachel's car. 2 security guards flanked him. One was a wall of muscle in a black jacket. The other wired with an earpiece and watchful eyes. Cameron moved through the space like he owned it, because, in a way, he probably did. "Mr. Sterling, welcome back." Derek materialized instantly, his voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "Your private section is ready. We prepared everything exactly as you requested." Cameron nodded once. His movements were precise, calculated. Nothing wasted. His eyes swept the room, assessing, cataloging, determining value in a fraction of a second. Rachel had seen that look before, in boardrooms, in courtrooms, the look of someone who decided your worth before you opened your mouth. But then something unexpected happened. Cameron stopped at the coat check. "Margaret," he said to the elderly attendant, "how's your grandson doing? Still planning on Northwestern?" Margaret's face lit up. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. Thanks to the scholarship recommendation you wrote. He starts in January." "Good. He's a smart kid. Tell him to look up Dr. Patterson in the chemistry department." It was such a small moment, kind even, human. Rachel watched from across the room, recalibrating. He remembered names. He followed up. That complicated things. 12 guests filtered into the private dining section over the next 20 minutes. Political donors, based on their conversations. Election season fundraising. Rachel caught fragments, polling numbers, super PAC contributions, media strategy. They were buying access, and Cameron was selling it. His usual table, the corner booth with a view of the city, positioned so his back was never to the door. He ordered for the table without consulting the menu or asking prices. Appetizers for 12, wine pairings, the chef's special preparations. "And your pharmaceutical work?" one donor asked. "Apex Innovations is revolutionizing biotech research, from what I hear." Cameron's smile was modest, but proud. "We're trying, getting drugs to market faster, cutting through bureaucratic red tape. People are dying while they wait for treatments. We're changing that." Noble words. Rachel had heard them before. She'd believed them once. Derek grabbed her arm, voice low. "You're on the Sterling party. Do not screw this up. He tips 40% if everything's perfect. He gets you fired if it's not." Rachel's stomach dropped. Of course. Of course she'd be assigned to him. She picked up her order pad and walked toward the private section, mind already running through every possible mistake she could make. Keep your head down. Be invisible. Get through this shift. She had no idea she was walking toward the man who'd signed the order that destroyed her life 3 years ago. And he had no idea the waitress approaching his table was the only person in Chicago who could save him from dying tonight. Rachel delivered the appetizers at 8:43 p.m., seared scallops for the table. She moved efficiently, placing each plate with practiced precision. Invisible, professional, forgettable. That's when she saw it. Cameron's pill organizer sat next to his water glass. 7 compartments, 1 for each day. Today's section was open. She could see the small white tablet inside, blood pressure medication. She recognized it instantly. Lisinopril, probably 20 milligrams, based on the size. Her mind cataloged the information automatically. Couldn't help it. Then Cameron ordered his 3rd drink. Another grapefruit martini. he told her without looking up from his conversation. Rachel's hand froze on her order pad. Grapefruit, lisinopril. Her brain fired like a warning system. That combination increased blood pressure medication concentration by 40%. Not deadly on its own, but dangerous. Very dangerous. She wrote down the order and walked away, heart beating faster than it should. Not your problem. Not your business. Just bring the drink. But her eyes kept drifting back to his table, to the pill organizer, to the martini glass being refilled. At 9:17 p.m., Cameron reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a second medication bottle. Rachel was clearing the table next to his when she saw it. Her breath caught. The capsule he shook into his palm was distinctive, elongated, royal blue with a white band. She knew that capsule, had worked with that exact drug in her research days. Sildenafil, but not the standard dose. That was the 100 milligrams variant, prescribed for pulmonary issues, not the reason most people knew the drug. Combined with blood pressure medication, it could cause dangerous drops in blood pressure. Combined with grapefruit, which amplified everything in his system. Combined with the alcohol, her mind did the calculation in 2 seconds. Cardiac arrest within 90 minutes, maybe less. Rachel's pulse hammered in her ears. She stood frozen, appetizer plate still in her hands. Walk away. It's not your problem. Last time you spoke up, it cost you everything. The memory hit her like a physical blow. 3 years ago, the conference room at Apex Innovations. Clinical trial data spread across the table. Numbers that didn't make sense, side effect that had been quietly removed from reports. These numbers are falsified, she'd said. Confident. Certain. Right. They'd smiled at her, thanked her for her diligence, walked her to HR within an hour, terminated for attitude problems, and failure to understand business realities. Within a week, she was blacklisted. Every company she applied to suddenly had no openings. Every interview went cold. Her mentor stopped returning calls. 6 months later, she was a waitress with $180,000 in legal debt from trying to fight it. That's what speaking up gets you. But Cameron was lifting the capsule to his mouth, reaching for his water glass. Rachel's hand moved before her mind could stop it. "Excuse me, sir." She crossed the 3 steps to his table. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Cameron looked up, mildly annoyed. "Yes." The words stuck in her throat. 12 faces turned toward her, the whole table watching. Derek somewhere behind her, probably having a heart attack. "Say it. Say it now, or watch him die. That drug you're about to take will kill you." The private dining room went dead silent. Cameron's hand stopped, the blue capsule balanced between his fingers. His expression shifted from annoyance to confusion to something cold and dangerous. "I beg your pardon?" Rachel's mouth went dry, but she kept going. Had to keep going. "The medication you're holding, combined with the blood pressure medication you took earlier and the grapefruit in your drinks, it creates a fatal interaction. Your blood pressure will drop catastrophically. You'll go into cardiac arrest within 90 minutes. Cameron stared at her, his eyes rice. "I think I know my own medication better than a waitress." The words hit like a slap. She'd heard that tone before. "I know better than you. You're nobody. You're nothing." But she wasn't nothing. Not about this. "That's sildenafil 100 milligrams, Rachel said, her voice stronger now. "You're taking it for pulmonary arterial hypertension. The grapefruit juice you've been drinking inhibits the CYP3A4 enzyme in your liver, which means your body can't break down the medication properly. Combined with the ACE inhibitor, the lisinopril in your pill organizer, your blood pressure will drop so fast your heart won't be able to compensate. Add the alcohol, and you're looking at cardiac arrest before you make it home tonight. Every eye in the room was locked on her. Cameron's face had gone very still. Who the hell are you? The security guard moved first. Victor, the wall of muscle in the black jacket, was across the room in 3 strides. His hand clamped on Rachel's shoulder, gripped like iron. Ma'am, step back from the table. Now, wait, Rachel tried, but Victor was already pulling her backward. Derek, Victor barked, get your employee under control. Derek materialized, face bright red, eyes panicked. Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. Rachel, what the hell are you? I'm trying to save his life. Rachel's voice cracked. She twisted in Victor's grip, looking at Cameron. Please, just listen to me for 30 seconds. Look up the interaction yourself. Grapefruit and ACE inhibitors. Sildenafil and alcohol. I'm not making this up. Cameron hadn't moved. The blue capsule was still in his hand. His face was unreadable, but his jaw was tight. One of the donors, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, laughed nervously. This is absurd. Cameron, do you want us to call the police? She's clearly trying to extort him, another donor said. Or she's mentally unstable. Either way. Actually, a woman's voice cut through the chaos. Hold on. Everyone turned. Dr. Patricia Holbrook. Rachel had served her twice before, always professional, always kind. Was leaning forward in her seat. She was in her 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes, behind stylish glasses. What she's describing, Patricia said slowly, is actually accurate. The room went quiet again. Patricia looked at Rachel. You said CYP3A for enzyme inhibition? Rachel nodded, hardly daring to breathe. Yes, grapefruit irreversibly inhibits it. The medication builds up in the bloodstream because the body can't metabolize it properly. Patricia turned to Cameron. She's right. I'm a cardiologist. That's a real interaction. A dangerous one. She paused. How does a waitress know about cytochrome P450 enzymes? All eyes swung back to Rachel. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely think. This was it. The moment where she either doubled down or walked away. Where she became visible or stayed invisible. I have a PhD in biochemistry, Rachel said quietly. From Northwestern. The silence was deafening. Derek's face went pale. Rachel, what? Cameron held up one hand. Derek's mouth snapped shut immediately. Cameron studied Rachel like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. His eyes were calculating, suspicious, but no longer dismissive. A PhD? Yes. From Northwestern? Yes. Working as a waitress at Meridian Steakhouse. Rachel lifted her chin. People need jobs, Mr. Sterling. Even people with PhDs. Something flickered across Cameron's face. Not quite belief, not quite respect, but interest. Victor, let her go, Cameron said. Victor released Rachel's shoulder immediately. She rubbed the spot where his fingers had been, could already feel the bruise forming. Cameron set the blue capsule down on the table. You seem very confident about this interaction. Because I've studied it extensively. I've worked with these medications. I know what they do. Cameron picked up his phone, typed something, waited. His face was neutral, giving nothing away. Then his eyes flicked to the screen, and something changed in his expression. Just for a second, he set the phone down. The internet seems to agree with you. Yes, sir. Cameron leaned back in his chair. Everyone was watching him, waiting for his reaction. The room felt like it might explode from the tension. All right, Dr. He paused. What's your name? Winters. Rachel Winters. He nodded slowly. Dr. Winters, let's test your knowledge. If you really have a PhD in biochemistry, you should be able to answer some basic questions. Rachel's stomach dropped. This was a trap. But what choice did she have? Fine. What's the primary mechanism of action for ACE inhibitors? They block angiotensin-converting enzyme, preventing the conversion of angiotensin to angiotensin II. This reduces vasoconstriction and aldosterone secretion, lowering blood pressure. Cameron's eyebrow raised slightly. Sildenafil's effect on pulmonary arterial hypertension? It inhibits phosphodiesterase type 5, increasing cyclic GMP levels in smooth muscle cells. This causes vasodilation in pulmonary arteries, reducing pressure in the lungs. And why specifically is grapefruit the problem? Furanocoumarins in grapefruit juice irreversibly bind to CYP3A4 in the intestinal wall. The enzyme can't recover until the body produces new enzymes, which takes up to 72 hours. During that time, medications that rely on CYP3A4 for metabolism accumulate to dangerous levels. Rachel rattled off the answers without hesitation, without thought. This was her language, her world. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like herself again. Cameron was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for his pill organizer, took out only the white tablet, the blood pressure medication, and swallowed it with water. The blue capsule stayed on the table. "Victor," Cameron said calmly, "call my doctor. Ask him about the interaction Dr. Winters described." Victor moved to the corner, phone to his ear, voice too low to hear. Derek stepped forward, his face still red, but now confused. "Mr. Sterling, I don't understand." Rachel never mentioned. "Derek," Cameron interrupted. "How long has Dr. Winters worked here?" About 18 months. "And you never thought to ask why someone with a PhD was serving steaks?" Derek opened and closed his mouth like a fish. Cameron looked back at Rachel. His eyes were sharp, assessing. "Why are you working here, Dr. Winters?" Tell him everything. Tell him he's the reason." But Rachel swallowed the words. "Life happened, Mr. Sterling. Sometimes we end up in places we never expected." Something in his expression shifted. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. Victor returned. "Sir, your doctor confirms the interaction. He's actually shocked you didn't know about it. He says you should have been warned when the prescription was issued." Cameron's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. "I see." He looked at Rachel. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Cameron gestured to Derek. "She touched me. She violated protocol. You know what has to happen." Derek nodded miserably. "Rachel, I'm sorry. You can't. You know you can't touch the guests. I have to let you go." Rachel had known it was coming, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. $180,000 in debt. Rent due in 6 days. And now no job. "I understand," she said quietly. "Victor, escort Dr. Winters out." Victor moved forward again, but gently this time. Rachel turned to go, her mind already racing through impossibilities. Where would she find another job? How would she make rent? How had trying to save someone's life just destroyed hers all over again? She reached the doorway of the private section, then turned back. Cameron was watching her. Everyone was watching her. "Mr. Sterling," Rachel said. Her voice didn't shake anymore. "Check your vitals in 90 minutes. Then check them again, knowing what would have happened if you'd swallowed that pill." She left before he could respond. "Now here's what I need to know before we continue. If you were in Rachel's position, if you knew something that could save someone's life, but speaking up would cost you everything, would you stay silent or would you risk it all? Drop your answer below, because what happens next depends on a choice Rachel made 3 years ago. A choice that connects her to Cameron Sterling in a way neither of them knows yet. And that connection? It's about to blow this entire story wide open. Make sure you're subscribed, because the next section reveals why Rachel really ended up at Meridian Steakhouse. And trust me, it wasn't an accident. Victor walked Rachel through the restaurant. Every server watched. Every customer's eyes followed her. The walk of shame. Outside, Chicago's October wind hit her like a wall. She hadn't grabbed her coat. It was still in her locker, and they weren't letting her go back. Rachel pulled out her phone with shaking hands. The screen lit up her face in the darkness. Bank account, $347.18. Rent due in 6 days, $900. Legal debt remaining, $180,000. She just saved a billionaire's life and lost everything. Again, Rachel sat on the floor of her studio apartment at 1:47 a.m., laptop balanced on her knees, calculator beside her, drowning in numbers that didn't add up. Rent due in 6 days, $900. Bank account, $347.18. That left her $552.82 short. The legal debt payment, $2,400, was already 5 days late. Her phone had 14 missed calls from the collections agency. She'd applied to 6 restaurants in the past 3 hours. None were hiring. Word traveled fast in Chicago's restaurant scene. The waitress who grabbed Cameron Sterling. The crazy one who talked about drug interactions. Don't hire her. Rachel pressed her palms against her eyes. Exhaustion made her skull ache. Her laptop screen had gone dark. She tapped the keyboard and it lit up again, still open to the Google search she'd done an hour ago. Cameron Sterling, Chicago billionaire. His face filled the screen. Professional photo. Confident smile. The headline beneath read, Apex Innovations CEO Cameron Sterling. Revolutionizing drug development. Apex Innovations. Rachel's breath stopped. She clicked the link with shaking fingers. The company website loaded. That logo. That damn logo she tried to forget for 3 years. Blue and silver. Clean lines. Modern. The logo that had been on her termination papers. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She scrolled frantically. Executive team photos. And there he was. CEO and founder. Cameron Sterling. The man whose life she'd saved tonight was the man who destroyed hers 3 years ago. The memory crashed over her like ice water. 3 years ago. Apex Innovations, Research Division, Building C. Rachel had worked there for 2 years. Senior Research Director. Dream job. She'd been so proud. The clinical trial data sat on her desk. Phase 3 trials for a hypertension medication. The numbers were wrong. Not subtly wrong. Obviously dangerously wrong. Adverse cardiac events had been removed from patient reports. Side effects had been downplayed. The drug was being fast-tracked for FDA approval, and it shouldn't have been. She'd gone to her supervisor first, then his supervisor, then HR. These numbers are falsified, she'd said, laying out the evidence with the careful precision of someone who knew she was right. They'd smiled, thanked her, told her they'd look into it. 2 days later, she was called to the executive floor, a conference room she'd never been in before. 3 lawyers, 1 HR representative, and a termination letter. We're letting you go, Dr. Winters. Effective immediately. For what? I reported data fraud. That's my job. That's my ethical obligation. For attitude problems. For failure to work collaboratively. For creating a hostile work environment with baseless accusations. Baseless? I have documentation. Which you obtain by accessing files beyond your authorization level. That's corporate espionage, Dr. Winters. We could prosecute, but we're being generous. Sign this NDA. Take your severance and go quietly. The NDA had been 15 pages long. The severance was 3 months' salary, a pittance compared to what she'd lose. But the alternative was criminal charges and a trial she couldn't afford. She'd signed, at the bottom of the termination letter, a signature. Cameron Sterling, CEO. She'd never met him, never even seen him in person. Just that signature. Sharp, confident. The signature of a man who'd never been questioned. Rachel stared at his face on her laptop screen now, rage and grief and exhaustion tangling in her chest. He'd fired her, blacklisted her. She'd spent 6 months trying to find another research position. Every door closed. Every interview went cold after the background check. She'd burned through her savings, then her retirement, then started borrowing just to survive. When she tried to report the fraud to the FDA, she'd violated the NDA. Apex sued her for $180,000. She'd lost. And tonight, she'd save his life. Rachel laughed. It came out broken, half sob. Then her eyes caught on something. Her filing cabinet, the bottom drawer. She crossed the room, yanked it open, and pulled out a thick folder. 8 months of documentation. She'd never stopped watching Apex. Never stopped compiling evidence. Articles about adverse reactions that matched the patterns she'd seen. Quarterly reports with numbers that didn't quite add up. Anonymous tips from researchers still inside who were too scared to go public themselves. Rachel opened the folder. Documentation of 47 drugs with compromised data. 8 months of careful, obsessive work. Cameron Sterling had no idea who she was, but he was about to find out. Cameron Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, looking out over Chicago's skyline. It was 2:34 a.m. He should have been asleep. Instead, his mind kept circling back to the waitress, Dr. Winters. His pulse was still elevated, not dangerously so, but enough to notice. His Apple Watch had buzzed twice, heart rate warnings. He'd taken the blood pressure medication at dinner. Just that one, not the sildenafil. What if she'd been right? What if that blue capsule would have killed him? His phone buzzed. Elena Garcia, his business partner and Apex's COO. "You still up?" Cameron texted back. Unfortunately. 3 dots appeared. "Then can I come up? We need to talk." 5 minutes later, Elena walked into his penthouse. She looked tired, still in her fundraiser clothes from dinner, but her heels were in her hand. "You fired someone who saved your life tonight," Elena said without preamble. Cameron sighed. "She violated protocol. You know that." Cameron, she's a biochemist with a PhD from Northwestern, working as a waitress. Doesn't that strike you as strange? People have their reasons. Did you run a background check? Cameron hesitated. Victor's handling it. Elena's eyes narrowed. What's her full name? Rachel Winters. Elena went very still. Rachel Winters. Yes. Why, Cameron? Elena's voice had gone quiet. Dangerous quiet. Do you remember the researcher we fired 3 years ago? The one who reported the Phase 3 data issues on the CardioMax trial. Cameron's stomach dropped. That was Rachel Winters? Dr. Rachel Winters, PhD in biochemistry from Northwestern. You signed her termination order yourself. The room tilted. Cameron sat down heavily on the couch. That was her. You never met her face to face. You just signed papers. But yes, that was her. Jesus Christ. Cameron's hands were shaking. She saved my life tonight. The woman whose career I destroyed saved my life. Elena sat beside him. Why do you think someone with her credentials is working as a waitress, Cameron? We blacklisted her. His voice was hollow, industry-wide. And then we sued her for violating the NDA when she tried to report us. $180,000 in damages. I know. I signed off on it too. Cameron's head was spinning. The waitress, the biochemist, the whistleblower, they were all the same person. And she'd looked him in the eye and warned him about a drug interaction that would have killed him. There's something else, Elena said quietly. I looked up her research history. Do you know what her specialty was? What? Drug interaction safety. Specifically, C-YP450 enzyme inhibition and medication contraindications. She literally wrote her dissertation on grapefruit interactions with cardiovascular drugs. Cameron closed his eyes. So she's not just knowledgeable. She's an expert. She's the expert. And we fired her for trying to do her job. Silence filled the penthouse. Outside, Chicago glittered oblivious. Why didn't you say anything? Cameron asked. She could have told me who she was. Could have thrown it in my face. Maybe she's a better person than we are. Cameron stood, paced to the windows. His reflection stared back at him. 54 years old, billionaire, CEO of one of the fastest-growing biotech companies in America. And tonight, saved by a woman working minimum wage plus tips because of a decision he'd made without a second thought. His daughter's face flashed in his mind. So, dead at 16 from medication that shouldn't have been on the market. The reason he built Apex in the first place? To get life-saving drugs to people faster. To cut through the bureaucratic nonsense that killed people while they waited. I built this company to prevent what happened to Sophie. But what if Rachel Winters had been right? What if the data had been falsified? What if his company, his legacy, was doing exactly what he'd sworn to prevent? Find out everything about her current situation, Cameron said. Where she's living, her financial status, everything. Already done. Elena pulled out her phone, read from the screen. Studio apartment in Rogers Park. $180,000 in debt from our lawsuit. No family in Chicago. Terminated from Meridian Steakhouse approximately 4 hours ago for inappropriate contact with a guest. Cameron's jaw tightened. I got her fired twice. Yes, you did. He turned to face Elena. What do we do? That depends. Do you want to know if she was right about the CardioMax data? Cameron met her eyes. Were you involved in that decision? To bury her report? Elena held his gaze. No, I was in Dubai closing the manufacturing deal. By the time I got back, she was already gone. I asked questions. I was told it had been handled. I trusted you, Cameron. And now, Elena stood. Now I think we need to find out if the woman who saved your life tonight is about to destroy your company tomorrow. Because if she's been documenting evidence for 3 years, if she's been building a case. Cameron's phone buzzed. Victor's name flashed on the screen. Sterling, Cameron answered. Sir, you need to see this. Victor's voice was tight. I ran the background check on Rachel Winters. She's been in contact with the FDA's Office of Criminal Investigations. Multiple emails over the past 8 months. Cameron's blood ran cold. What kind of emails? Tips about data irregularities at Apex Innovations. She's been feeding them information. Sir, I think she's building a case against us. Cameron looked at Elena. Her face had gone pale. How long until they act? Cameron asked. No way to know. Could be months. Could be tomorrow. Cameron ended the call. His reflection in the window looked older than it had an hour ago. She didn't save me out of kindness, he said quietly. She saved me because dead men can't face consequences. Elena shook her head. You don't know that. Don't I? She's been building a case for 8 months. Tonight, she had the perfect opportunity to let me die. Natural causes. Problem solved. But she didn't. She warned me. Why? Maybe because she's not a murderer, Cameron. Maybe because she's exactly what we should have been. Someone who tells the truth even when it costs her everything. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Cameron's Apple Watch buzzed again. Heart rate, 94 BPM. Elevated. Still elevated. What if she'd been right about everything? 18 hours after the dinner, Cameron Sterling collapsed in his office bathroom. One moment, he'd been fine, reviewing quarterly reports, answering emails, ignoring the slight dizziness he'd felt all morning. The next, his vision tunneled, his heart stuttered, and the floor rushed up to meet him. Victor found him 3 minutes later, conscious but gray-faced and sweating. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Northwestern Memorial Hospital in 15. By the time they got him into a room, his heart rhythm had stabilized. But the monitors told a story his body couldn't. Dangerous arrhythmia, blood pressure that had dropped to 88/54 before recovering, signs of cardiac stress. Mr. Sterling, the ER doctor said, reviewing his chart. Have you taken any medications in the past 24 hours? Cameron listed them. Blood pressure medication. Sildenafil, wait. No, he hadn't taken that one. Just the blood pressure pill. And he'd been drinking grapefruit martinis. The doctor's face changed. Sir, did anyone warn you about that interaction? A waitress mentioned something. A waitress. The doctor's tone was flat. Mr. Sterling, you're experiencing delayed cardiac effects from a drug interaction. The grapefruit amplified your blood pressure medication. You're lucky you didn't take anything else. If you had, I'd be dead. Cameron's voice was hollow. She said 90 minutes. It's been 18 hours. Grapefruit effects can last up to 72 hours. Your body is still processing the interaction. You need monitoring. And you need to send that waitress a thank you card because she saved your life. They admitted him for observation. Private room. Cardiac monitoring. Elena arrived within an hour, followed by the donors from last night's fundraiser, all concerned and sympathetic. And then Dr. Patricia Holbrook walked in as his attending cardiologist, and Cameron remembered she'd been at the table last night. She'd been the one who'd confirmed Rachel's warning. Mr. Sterling, Patricia said, her tone professional but pointed. Let's talk about how a waitress knew more about your medication safety than you did. Before Cameron could answer, there was a commotion in the hallway. Rachel Winter's voice cut through. I'm not here to see him. I'm here to deliver documents to hospital administration. Cameron's head snapped toward the door. Elena moved instinctively, positioning herself between Cameron and the entrance. Rachel appeared in the doorway, and the room went silent. She looked different than she had last night. No apron, no uniform. She wore jeans and a blazer. Her hair pulled back, and she carried a thick folder under one arm. Her eyes scanned the room, saw the donor, saw Elena, saw Patricia, and then locked on Cameron. Dr. Winters, Patricia said, and several donors' heads swiveled in surprise. What are you doing here? Delivering evidence to the FDA liaison in the hospital's legal department, Rachel said evenly. Apex Innovations is under investigation. The words dropped like a bomb. Elena stepped forward. Rachel, this isn't time. No, it's exactly the time. Rachel's voice was steady, but her hands gripped the folder tight. Mr. Sterling is experiencing cardiac effects from a drug interaction I warned him about. The medication he almost took, sildenafil 100 milligrams, came from an Apex Innovations trial that I flagged 3 years ago for data irregularities. The same trial you fired me for reporting. Cameron's mouth went dry. What? Rachel stepped into the room fully. 10 donors watched her. Victor moved toward her, but Patricia held up one hand. Let her speak, Patricia said. Rachel looked at Cameron directly. My name is Dr. Rachel Winters, Ph.D. in biochemistry from Northwestern University. I was Senior Research Director at Apex Innovations until 3 years ago, when I discovered falsified clinical trial data on your CardioMax hypertension medication. I reported it internally. You personally signed the order terminating my employment. Then you blacklisted me industry-wide. Then you sued me for $180,000 when I tried to report the fraud to the FDA. The room was dead silent. Cameron's mind was racing, pieces clicking into place. You work for me. I work for Apex. I never met you face to face. But yes, I work for you, until your signature destroyed my career. One of the donors, Marcus Chun, a venture capitalist, spoke up. Wait, this is the whistleblower from 3 years ago? Cameron, you told us that was handled. It was handled, Elena said quietly. We fired her and buried the report. Rachel's eyes snapped to Elena. You knew. Not until last night, Elena said. When Cameron told me your name, I remembered. Rachel laughed bitterly. Of course you did. Everyone remembers the troublemaker. No one remembers what she was trying to stop. Cameron found his voice. What data did you report? Phase 3 trials on Cardiomax. 47 patients experienced severe cardiac events. 21 were removed from the final FDA submission. Side effects were downplayed. Adverse events were categorized as unrelated to treatment, without proper investigation. The drug was fast-tracked based on incomplete and falsified data. That's a serious accusation, Victor said from the corner. It's a documented fact. Rachel opened her folder, pulled out pages, dropped them on Cameron's hospital bed. I have the original trial data. I have the submitted FDA application. I have emails from senior researchers discussing which patients to exclude. I have everything. Patricia picked up one of the documents, scanned it, and her face went pale. Jesus Christ. Rachel, this is fraud, Rachel finished. Corporate fraud that endangered patients. Fraud that I tried to stop 3 years ago. Fraud that's still ongoing. Cameron stared at the papers. His daughter's face flashed in his mind again. Sophie, dying because of medication that shouldn't have been approved. How many drugs, he asked quietly. What? How many drugs at Apex have compromised data? Rachel met his eyes. Based on my 8 months of investigation, 47 drugs across multiple therapeutic categories. Not all are dangerous, but all have data irregularities that should have triggered FDA review. The number hit him like a physical blow. 47. Elena sat down heavily. Cameron? You don't remember me, do you? Rachel said, you signed my termination, sued me into debt, and you don't even remember my face. Cameron looked at her, really looked at her, and the horrible truth was, no, he didn't remember. He'd signed hundreds of documents over the years. Thousands. Her termination had been one Tuesday afternoon among many. No, he admitted. I don't remember you. Rachel nodded slowly. But I remember your signature. I've seen it in my nightmares for 3 years. And last night, I looked into your eyes and saved your life anyway. Do you want to know why? The room waited. Because I'm not like you, Rachel said quietly. I don't decide who lives and dies based on convenience or profit. I took an oath when I got my PhD to pursue truth, to protect public safety, to speak up even when it cost me everything. You taught me what happens when you do the right thing. You destroyed my career, my reputation, my financial future, but you couldn't destroy who I am. Cameron couldn't speak. His heart monitor beeped steadily in the silence. Rachel set the folder on the foot of his bed. The FDA is opening a formal investigation as of this morning. I submitted my evidence at 9 a.m. You'll be receiving a subpoena within 48 hours. 47 drugs. Millions of patients. And it all started with the report I gave you 3 years ago that you chose to bury. She turned to leave. Wait, Cameron said. Rachel stopped but didn't turn around. Why did you save me? Cameron's voice cracked. Last night, if you knew who I was, if you'd figured it out, you could have let me take that pill. I would have died, and your problem would have been solved. Rachel turned slowly. Is that what you think? That I'm capable of murder? I don't know what you're capable of. Then let me be clear, Mr. Sterling. I don't want you dead. I want you accountable. Dead men don't face consequences. Dead men don't testify. Dead men don't make restitution. She paused. And dead men don't change. I'd rather you live long enough to see what your choices cost. Live long enough to fix it. Or live long enough to understand why I couldn't stay silent. She left before anyone could respond. All right, here's what I need to know. Do you think Rachel did the right thing? Should she have exposed him? Or should she have stayed silent and kept her job? Drop your answer below, because what happens next, the revelations that are about to unfold, will make you question everything you think you know about justice, revenge, and redemption. Cameron Sterling is about to learn something about Rachel that will shatter everything. And Rachel? She's about to discover why Cameron built Apex in the first place. Make sure you're subscribed because the next section reveals a connection between these two that neither of them knew existed. And trust me, it changes everything. Patricia watched Rachel leave, then turned to Cameron. She's right, you know. Patricia, I'm your doctor right now, so I'm saying this clinically. That woman saved your life twice. Once last night, by stopping you from taking that pill, and once just now, by giving you a chance to make it right before the FDA destroys you. Cameron looked down at the folder on his bed. 47 drugs, 8 months of documentation, 3 years of a woman's life spent pursuing justice while he'd forgotten she existed. What have I done? He whispered. Elena answered from across the room, her voice heavy. Exactly what you swore you'd never do, Cameron. Exactly what killed Sophie. Cameron didn't open the folder for 3 hours. It sat at the foot of his hospital bed like an accusation while doctors checked his vitals, adjusted his medications, and told him he'd be released in the morning if his heart rhythm stayed stable. Elena stayed. The donors left. Victor stood guard outside. But Cameron had told him to let anyone through. He didn't know who he was protecting anymore, himself or his secrets. At 4:47 p.m., Cameron finally reached for the folder. Inside, 3 years of his company's corruption, documented with the precision of someone who'd been trained to find patterns in data. Trial reports with highlighted discrepancies, email printouts discussing patient exclusions, statistical analyses showing impossible consistency, the kind of consistency that only appeared in fabricated data. Whistleblower accounts from current Apex employees who'd sent anonymous tips to Rachel over the past 8 months. And on the very first page, a post-it note in neat handwriting. You told me I didn't understand business realities. Here's the reality. 47 drugs, millions of patients. And it started with one researcher you didn't believe. Cameron's hands shook as he read. Elena looked over his shoulder. Her face went from pale to gray. This isn't just bad, she whispered. Cameron, this is criminal. This is prison time. I know. Did you know about all this? Because I didn't. I swear to God, Cameron, I didn't know about most of these. I knew, Cameron said quietly. Elena froze. What? Not all of it. Not 47 drugs. But I knew about Cardiomex. I knew Rachel's report was legitimate. He looked up at Elena, and his eyes were hollow. I buried it anyway. Why? Because we needed FDA approval to secure the next round of funding. Because if we delayed the trial, our investors would have pulled out. Because I convinced myself that the cardiac events were statistical noise, that she was being overly cautious, that getting the drug to market would save more lives than it would risk. Elena sat down. Jesus, Cameron. I told myself I was doing it for Sophie, that I was cutting through bureaucratic red tape that killed people while they waited. But the truth, he laughed bitterly. I was protecting the company, protecting my reputation, and I destroyed Rachel Winters for trying to do her job. A knock on the door. Patricia entered, still in her white coat, but her expression was different now, harder. Mr. Sterling, I need to speak with you, privately if possible. Elena started to leave, but Cameron shook his head. She can stay. Whatever you need to say, Elena should hear it. Patricia closed the door. I spent the last 3 hours reviewing Dr. Winters' documentation. As a cardiologist, as someone who prescribes Apex medications to my patients, and as someone who was in that room last night when she saved your life. And she's right. About everything. Patricia's voice was cold. I have patients on CardioMax right now. Patients I told were safe. Patients who trusted me. And the data I based those recommendations on was falsified. Cameron couldn't meet her eyes. How many people? Patricia asked. How many patients have been harmed because your company prioritized profit over safety? I don't know. Find out. Patricia's jaw was tight because the FDA investigation won't just target Apex. It'll target every doctor who prescribed these medications, every hospital that carried them. And when my patients ask me why I didn't catch this, why I didn't question the data, how do I tell them? I'm sorry, Cameron said. It sounded pathetic even to his own ears. Patricia turned to leave, then stopped. Dr. Winters lost everything for trying to protect people like my patients. And you? You built an empire on their suffering. I hope it was worth it. She left. The door clicked shut with finality. Cameron and Elena sat in silence. Then Elena spoke. I need to tell you something. Cameron looked at her. Rachel Winters contacted me 8 months ago. Elena said quietly. She sent me an email with documentation of ongoing data irregularities. She said she'd been watching Apex, that she still had contact inside, that the problems she'd identified 3 years ago were continuing. Cameron's stomach dropped. You knew. I didn't respond to her first email, or her second, but her third one. Elena pulled out her phone, opened an email, and handed it to Cameron. The subject line read, How many deaths is your loyalty worth? Cameron read the email. Rachel had detailed 3 patients who died from Apex medications in the previous 6 months. She'd connected their deaths to the compromised trial data. She'd asked Elena one question. Does Cameron know? Or has he convinced himself that profit and public safety can coexist? I responded, Elena said. I asked for more information. She sent it. For 8 months, I've been receiving documentation from her, evidence I couldn't ignore. Why didn't you tell me? Elena met his eyes, because I was trying to decide if you were part of the problem or part of the solution. And honestly, Cameron, until last night I didn't know. Cameron felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. You've been working with her. I've been her confidential source inside Apex. Patient reports, internal memos, board meeting minutes. Everything she's submitting to the FDA, I gave her half of it. You betrayed me. No. Elena's voice was firm. I betrayed your mistakes. There's a difference. Cameron's mind reeled. His business partner, his most trusted colleague, the person who'd been beside him since the beginning. Why, he asked. Because 5 years ago you told me we were building this company to prevent what happened to Sophie, to save lives, to cut through bureaucracy and get treatments to people who needed them. That's the company I signed up for, Cameron. That's the mission I believed in. She leaned forward, but somewhere along the way you forgot. You started measuring success in funding rounds and stock prices instead of lives saved. You started seeing researchers like Rachel as obstacles instead of safeguards. You became exactly what we swore we'd fight against. Cameron's throat was tight, so you helped her destroy me. No, I helped her tell the truth. Whether that destroys you is your choice. A long silence. Cameron's heart monitor beeped steadily. Outside, Chicago moved forward, oblivious. The medication I almost took last night, Cameron said quietly. The sildenafil. Rachel said it came from an Apex trial. It did. Pulmonary arterial hypertension treatment. Fast-tracked 18 months ago based on Phase 2 data that excluded 23 patients with adverse reactions. I prescribed myself medication for my own company's fraudulent trial. Yes. Cameron laughed. It came out broken. So Rachel was right. My company's corruption almost killed me. There's a poetic justice in that. There's a lesson in that, Elena corrected. The question is whether you'll learn it. Cameron looked at the folder again. 47 drugs. Years of decisions he'd made or approved. Thousands of patients. And his daughter's face in his mind. Always his daughter. The reason for everything. I built Apex because Sophie died from pharmaceutical negligence, he said. Did I ever tell you the full story? Elena shook her head. She was 16. Epilepsy. They prescribed her a new medication. Cutting edge, promising. Within 3 months, she developed liver failure. The drug had been fast-tracked based on incomplete safety data. The pharmaceutical company had buried reports of hepatotoxicity to get it to market faster. Cameron's voice cracked. I watched her die over 6 weeks. Watched her suffer because some executive decided profit mattered more than due diligence. And I swore I would never let that happen to anyone else. That's why I built Apex. To be different. To be better. And instead, Elena said gently, you became them. The words hit like a hammer. I became exactly what killed her, Cameron whispered. Rachel said that last night. She was right. His phone buzzed. Victor's name on the screen. Sterling. Sir, the FDA just served a subpoena. They're requesting all trial data for 47 drugs, internal communications, and board meeting records for the past 3 years. And they want you to testify. Cameron closed his eyes. When? 2 weeks. Public hearing. Understood. He ended the call. Looked at Elena. What do I do? Elena stood. You have 2 choices, Cameron. Fight this. Hire lawyers. Bury Rachel in legal fees. Protect the company at all costs. Or you do what you should have done 3 years ago when she first reported the CardioMax data. Which is, tell the truth. All of it. Testify against your own company. Admit what you did. Face the consequences. And maybe save the legacy you actually wanted to build. Cameron looked at his daughter's photo on his phone's lock screen. Sophie's smile. Forever 16. An apology doesn't erase consequences, he said quietly, echoing Rachel's words. But I didn't do this for revenge. I did it so no one else loses what we both lost. What? Something Rachel said. She didn't expose Apex for revenge. She did it to protect people, the way I should have been protecting them all along. Cameron picked up the folder. All that evidence. All that truth. Call my lawyer, he said. Tell him I'm cooperating fully with the FDA investigation. Tell him I'm testifying. And tell him to draw up a settlement offer for Dr. Rachel Winters. $180,000 for the debt we saddled her with. And whatever else she needs to rebuild the career we destroyed. Elena's eyes widened. Cameron, it won't make it right. Nothing will make it right. But it's a start. The board will remove you. The shareholders will sue. You could go to prison. I know. Cameron met her eyes. But Rachel was right about one thing. I'd rather face consequences than live as a hypocrite. Sophie deserves better. My patient deserves better. He paused. And Rachel Winters deserves better than the man who signed her death warrant, pretending he's a victim now. 2 weeks later, Cameron Sterling walked into the FDA public hearing and destroyed his own empire. The room was packed. Media, shareholders, patients, FDA officials, and in the back row, wearing a blazer and the calm expression of someone who'd already won, sat Dr. Rachel Winters. Cameron testified for 4 hours. He detailed every falsified trial, named every researcher who'd been pressured to exclude data, produced internal emails showing his knowledge and approval, admitted to burying Rachel's original report, confirmed that 47 drugs had compromised safety data. His lawyer tried 3 times to stop him. Cameron ignored him every time. By hour 3, Apex's stock had crashed 47%. By hour 4, the board had called an emergency meeting to remove him as CEO. Cameron didn't stop talking. "I built this company to honor my daughter's memory," he said into the microphone. His voice steady despite everything. "She died from pharmaceutical negligence, from a drug that was rushed to market with incomplete safety data. And in trying to prevent that from happening to others, I became exactly what killed her. I prioritized speed over safety, profit over patience. And when a researcher tried to stop me, I destroyed her career rather than admit I was wrong." He looked directly at Rachel. Dr. Rachel Winters was right. 3 years ago, she was right. Tonight at Meridian Steakhouse, she was right. And for 3 years, I've been wrong. Criminally wrong. Morally wrong. And I'm here today to ensure that no one else pays for my mistakes. The hearing concluded at 6:47 p.m. By 7 p.m., the news coverage had exploded. Apex CEO admits to systematic fraud. Billionaire testifies against own company. Pharmaceutical whistleblower vindicated after 3 years. By 8 p.m., Cameron had been formally removed as CEO. The board issued a statement distancing themselves from his actions. Shareholders filed 3 separate lawsuits. By 9 p.m., Rachel received a call from Apex's legal department. A settlement offer, $180,000 to clear her debt, additional $500,000 in damages, full clearance of her professional reputation, and a formal public apology. She accepted the debt clearance and the apology. She donated the damages to a pharmaceutical safety nonprofit. The next morning, Cameron woke up to find his penthouse being prepared for asset seizure. Federal investigators had frozen Apex's accounts. Criminal charges were pending: fraud, endangerment, conspiracy. Victor had resigned. His security team disbanded. Even his personal assistant had quit overnight. But Elena called. "I'm testifying next week," she said, supporting Rachel's documentation. "The FDA is expanding the investigation to 3 other pharmaceutical companies." "Good," Cameron said. "Are you okay?" "No, but I'm better than I was 2 weeks ago." 3 days later, Derek, the Meridian Steakhouse manager who'd fired Rachel, called her. "Ms. Winters, I'd like to apologize and offer you your position back with a promotion to training manager if you're interested." Rachel declined politely. She had other plans. Victor, Cameron's former head of security, lost his private security license after an investigation revealed he'd intimidated multiple Apex whistleblowers over the years. He took a job as a mall security guard in suburban Ohio. But Cameron did one more thing. He liquidated his personal assets, not the frozen ones, but his private investments, his art collection, his secondary properties, and established the Sophie Sterling Foundation for Pharmaceutical Transparency. He named Rachel as the advisory board chair. He funded it with $50 million. The foundation's mission: support researchers who report safety concerns, provide legal defense for whistleblowers, advocate for FDA reform. Rachel accepted the advisory position, not for Cameron, for Sophie, for the 16-year-old who died because the truth had been buried, and for every other patient who deserved better. Rachel's journey from invisible waitress to vindicated expert took 3 years. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't just her story. It's the story of every person who's ever been dismissed because of their job title instead of their knowledge. Every expert working invisible jobs because they told the truth. Every whistleblower who lost everything for doing the right thing. I find these people. I tell their stories because society trains us to judge competence by appearance and status. And I'm building a community that refuses that lie. If you believe invisible people deserve to be seen, hit that subscribe button right now. Join the 400,000 people who know that the person serving your coffee, cleaning your office, or delivering your packages might be the most brilliant person you'll meet all day. Subscribe so you don't miss new stories every day. And drop below, what hidden skill do you have that would shock people who only see your job title? I read every comment. Your story might be next. 6 weeks after the hearing, Rachel Winters unlocked the door to her new office. The sign on the door read, Dr. Rachel Winters, Ph.D. Pharmaceutical Safety Consultant. Inside a desk, bookshelves, a window overlooking Chicago's River North neighborhood. No mahogany paneling, no leather booths, no smell of expensive coffee and money. Just clean, honest workspace. Rachel set her briefcase down and allowed herself one moment of stillness. 6 weeks ago, she'd been a waitress with $180,000 in debt. Today, she was a consultant with 3 clients, a growing reputation, and a bank account that was finally above zero. She still flinched when men in expensive suits entered her office. But now she didn't look away. Therapy was helping. Slowly. Dr. Kim had explained it would take time to untangle 3 years of trauma. But Rachel was learning to recognize the difference between caution and paralysis, between protecting herself and hiding. Her phone buzzed. An email from Patricia Holbrook. Dinner next week? Want to discuss bringing you on as a consultant for Northwestern's cardiology department. Rachel smiled. Typed back, absolutely. Another email. This one from Elena Garcia. Cameron wanted you to see this. Attached, a news article. Former Apex CEO Cameron Sterling completes first month of FDA Reform Initiative testimony. The photo showed Cameron in a simple suit, no designer labels, testifying before Congress. He looked older, tired, but somehow more honest than he'd been in his billion-dollar penthouse. Rachel read the article. Cameron had been working with the FDA for 6 weeks, identifying weaknesses in the drug approval process. He'd proposed stricter oversight, mandatory third-party data verification, protections for whistleblowers. He wasn't seeking redemption, the article said. He was seeking systemic change. At the end, Mr. Sterling declined to be interviewed for this piece, but provided a written statement. I can't undo the harm I caused, but I can dedicate the rest of my life to ensuring the systems that enabled my mistakes are dismantled. I owe that to my daughter, to the patients I failed, and to the researcher whose career I destroyed for telling the truth. Rachel closed her laptop. She didn't forgive him. Forgiveness wasn't a switch she could flip, but she could respect what he was trying to build from the ashes. That evening, she attended a medical ethics symposium at Northwestern. Patricia was speaking, and in the audience, 3 rows from the back, sat Cameron Sterling. He saw her, nodded once. Rachel nodded back. After Patricia's speech about the duty physicians have to question pharmaceutical data, to advocate for patients over profit, Cameron stood to leave. He passed Rachel's row. Dr. Winters, he said quietly. Mr. Sterling, I'm attending therapy, working with the FDA, testifying against 3 other pharmaceutical companies next month. He paused. It doesn't fix what I did, but I wanted you to know I'm trying. Rachel studied him. I know. I've been following your testimony. Why? Because I need to believe people can change, that speaking truth to power isn't pointless, but the cost of doing the right thing eventually matters. Cameron's eyes were damp. It matters. You matter. What you did, his voice caught. You saved more than my life that night, Dr. Winters. You saved my soul. What was left of it anyway? He left before she could respond. Rachel sat in the auditorium after everyone had gone, thinking about accountability and redemption, about consequences and change. Two people whose lives had collided in a moment of choice, both broken by a system that valued profit over truth, both trying in their own ways to build something better from the wreckage. It wasn't a happy ending. Happy endings were for stories where no one got hurt. But it was an honest ending. And after 3 years of lies, Rachel would take honesty every time. Her phone buzzed. A new email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject line: "Please help me. I need your advice." She opened it. "Dr. Winters, my name is Sarah Chin. I'm a research biochemist at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. I've discovered data irregularities in our phase 3 trials, and when I reported them, I was told to keep quiet or lose my job. I don't know what to do. I saw your testimony at the FDA hearing. Please, I need to know how you survived this, how you kept fighting when everything told you to stop." Rachel stared at the email for a long moment. Then she typed, "Sarah, let's talk. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office. Bring your documentation. You're not alone anymore." She hit send. This time, she knew exactly what she was doing. This time, she had a blueprint. This time, someone would believe the whistleblower. Rachel Winters, the waitress who stopped a billionaire from dying, had become Rachel Winters, the expert who stopped anyone from having to fight alone. Rachel's journey from invisible to unstoppable took 3 years. But here's what you didn't see. There are 47 more cases like hers that I'm investigating right now. Stories of hidden geniuses. Janitors who speak 6 languages. Security guards with PhDs. Delivery drivers who were once surgeons. People society has trained us to overlook, dismiss, underestimate. I find them. I document their stories. I give voice to the invisible experts working among us. Because here's the truth. Competence has nothing to do with job titles. Intelligence doesn't wear a uniform. And the person you ignored today might be the only one who can save you tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button. Join our community. Be part of the movement that refuses to judge people by their paychecks. And drop your answer below. What's your hidden expertise? What skill do you have that would shock the people who only see your job title? I read every single comment. One of you, right now, might be my next investigation. 6 months later, Rachel opened her email to find an attachment. No message, just a single PDF file from an anonymous sender. She opened it. Inside, documented evidence of fraud at 3 more pharmaceutical companies. Research from someone still inside the industry, too scared to come forward publicly, but brave enough to pass the information to someone who would. At the bottom of the document, one line: "Your testimony inspired me. I can't do what you did, but I can do this. Make it count. A friend." Rachel printed the document, added it to a new folder, made a note to call the FDA in the morning. Then she looked at her reflection in the dark window. 34 years old, independent consultant, whistleblower, survivor. Her hand was steady as she reached for her phone to call her next client. No trembling, no fear, just the calm precision of someone who knew exactly what she was worth. She started as a waitress who grabbed a billionaire's wrist to save his life. She'd become the woman who changed an industry. And in her office, on her desk, next to her PhD diploma, sat a small frame. Inside, a napkin from Meridian Steakhouse with one sentence written in her own handwriting from 3 years ago, the night before she reported the CardioMax fraud. "Tell the truth, even when your hands shake. Her hands didn't shake anymore.